Welcome to week 4, guys. Ritzker and Pace here, back in the, we'll call it a studio, the inplayLIVE den. How about that?
Yeah.
Week 4, but it's week 7 NFL already.
Yeah.
I love how, I was thinking about this today, like, NFL is such a blur. It just, like, smacks you in the face. You're in it all day. Monday night, Thursday night, Sunday all day, and then it's like, girlfriends are complaining, like, there's so much football on, and then before you know it's over. So it's like, enjoy it while it lasts, right? Enjoy it while it lasts.
Well, I think one of the things, too, is you're so excited for NFL. Amplify that tenfold with COVID.
Yeah.
And then you just look and you're like, holy shit, it's week 7. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last week, got some good feedback on our guest, Kenny.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll find some more guests like him with some different perspectives from different places in the world. That was awesome.
Yeah.
This week, the exciting news is that we are on iTunes Store and Spotify.
Bang.
So check us out, inplayLIVE podcast, or just search inplayLIVE, and we're up there, so you can listen to it in the car while you're running, whatever. I don't know. You don't have to watch us the whole time, so that's cool.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things, too, is no one likes to watch things on YouTube unless you have YouTube Premium, because you can't switch in and out of apps.
Yeah,
Whereas, like, when you're playing on a podcast, it's, like, on the podcast app in Apple, which is what I like to use. You can just listen to it. But at the same time, I think giving a visual to our voices is sometimes
of course,
nice, too. So pick your poison. But anyways, we're up on Apple and Spotify, which is awesome.
Yeah, so we were debating last week what to talk about, but this week we've settled on, because I see this all the time with especially people that just joined the community, what is a value wager? What is the difference between a big number and a value wager? And that kind of really identifying that not all big numbers are value wagers. So I see people coming in and saying, hey, Andrew, plus 600 on this comeback, or this team down, or this team to win, whether it's in hockey or baseball or
whatever,
football.
Yeah.
But, they see a big number and they think, oh, there's value there. But there's a big difference, and I think that that's worth exploring, especially for people who are just sort of getting their toes wet and looking at the other side of sports value wagering, as opposed to, they're used to betting on 1.9s or 2.1s or favorites even a lot, and then they come to this side and they see bigger numbers, and that gets exciting, right? Because you're thinking, oh, I can 5x or 10x my money in one bet.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than that, right?
Right.
So I think that, like, as just a starting point, and you do talk about this in your video, but what would you say defines a value wager?
Right. So I think first and foremost, what's really important to understand is that big odds doesn't implicate value. It could, but it doesn't. Not necessarily, right? There's a whole sports betting community, and I'm not saying this is right, but they search for value in like the 1.5 to 1.7 range. So like minus 200 to like minus 150 in American odds, thinking that it's safe value. And I'm not saying that's wrong. That's just not what we do, right? And we define a value wager as a sports bet that's going to make us money over time instead of the sports book. And the key word there is actually over time. It doesn't mean you're going to win it right now, right? Like all these people messaging me, can you guarantee me a profit? That's crazy. Like, how dumb are you to say something so stupid? In the world of sports betting, and when we call it investing, right? We refer to it as investing. Investing being something that you do with the intent to grow your money. In the realm of risk, this is the highest risk form of investing that you can pretty much put yourself on, right up there with cryptocurrencies or buying shorts on stocks where you can have unlimited losses, day trading, that kind of stuff. So we definitely consider it to be investing because of that term, value wager. We will make money on value wagers over the long term, as opposed to the traditional sports bet, which makes the sports books and the casinos money over the long term. So what that really means in a more technical sense is you are getting better odds on the price that the sports book is offering than the true theoretical odds of the outcome occurring, right? So the outcome is more likely than the odds that we're taking the wager at.
So what's like a elementary example of that?
Right. So, I mean, we had a member in our community this week that was really confused about the idea that outcomes don't matter, right? So when I say outcomes don't matter, what I'm referring to there is if you picked a team to win a spread and the odds of them winning were 50%, exactly 50%, and the price that you got was 1.91 or minus 110, if that was the price you got on that particular wager and you won your bet, you actually made the wrong decision, because if it wins 50% of the time but it only pays 1.91, that's going to lose you money over time, right? So some people have a really hard time grasping that even though you won your bet, you made the wrong decision, right? And the perfect example is that spread shouldn't pay 1.91. It should pay 2.0 for what's called a fair bet, which is going to break you even over time. And let's call it 2.05, 2.1 or higher, where theoretically speaking, you're going to make money over time, and then it becomes a value wager. So I used an analogy with this particular member inside of inplayLIVE. I said, hey, let's play a little game. Let's take a dice, one single dice, so it has 6 standard dice, 6 numbers on it, and let's roll the dice. You need to pick which outcome you'd like. You can pick a 1, that pays $400, and you put $100 in. You can pick a 2, that pays $400. You can pick a 3 or a 4 that both pay $600, or you could pick a 5 or a 6 that pay $700. Which would you pick, right? And the odds of a successful outcome are 1 in 6. So if you rolled a 1 and picked a 1, you would have profited $300 back. Yeah. But you will lose money over time. Whereas if you picked a 5 or a 6, if I had that theoretical scenario, I would bet 5 and 6 over and over and over and over and over again. And I know that if it came 1 through 4, a whole bunch of times in a row, I still made the right decision, even though the result wasn't correct. And that really is the definition of a value wager, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think to branch off of that even a little bit, you talk about in the course and in your live streams a lot about fair or implied odds, and that kind of to talk about that. So fair or implied odds are when like you said, the odds that the book is offering are equal to the
theoretical
outcome of that wager, right?
Yeah. So in that particular example that I just gave, I said 3 and 4 pay out 600. Well, the odds of a 3 being rolled is 1 in 6. The odds of a 4 being rolled is 1 in 6. So theoretically, over time, you place $100 on that 3 and 4. Over the course of 1 million dice spins, you'll have exactly all of your money back, in theory. Right.
Yeah. And so those are fair odds. Yeah. Fair being break even. Yeah. And then when we talk about value, now we're looking to get up and above that. Yeah. Right. So, where now you know that you're asking those 5 or 6, but you're getting the better odds.
Exactly.
Cue the value wager.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? I think that like just a takeaway from that is like really understanding that seeing a big number doesn't exactly mean a value wager. And I saw it a lot in especially hockey, when we were talking hockey, and people were like, this team is down a goal early or halfway through the game, and it's like they pay 5-1. Should we bet that? And you're kind of saying, no, hold off, because actually the implied odds or the things that could happen throughout that game will present not only more opportunities to take that team again, but also the true odd of that team coming back is not there, right? Mm-hmm. Like statistically speaking.
100%.
Yeah. And so that's something that you kind of learn as you go and as you watch and as you follow, especially being a part of the community with a lot of sharp people that are kind of doing this on a daily basis, right? You start to see that pattern. Yeah. But I think that to new people, you should definitely preface it like, hey, watch and learn a little bit to understand what bigger numbers mean. Right. One thing that comes to mind, we were watching that Cardinals-Cowboys game, right? Mm-hmm. That was awesome. But because we saw some insane numbers in that game, right?
Yeah, it was incredible.
But yeah, so like anyone who wasn't watching that game, it was the Arizona Cardinals, Dallas Cowboys, Monday Night Football. The over-under was
55.
It's like insane, right? And so we have really high over-under, two teams right from the outset struggling to move the ball, and we're seeing massive numbers for them not to move the ball. Yeah. Right? And so I think that was an example of where big numbers did make sense, right?
Yeah. Well, like, let me give you that game's a perfect example of where big numbers don't equate to value. Okay, so you can this that I'm about to explain to all you guys watching. This applies to any sport anywhere in the world. Okay, take the under in any game, like Champions League's on right now. You can watch as you take, let's say the pregame under in a Champions League is 3.5, or under 55.5 in that Monday Night Football game, right? As time ticks away, you see the value of your under increase from a cash out perspective over time.
As you hold your
right?
breath.
Yeah. So, like, on that same note, let me give you just one market as an example. This is on a lot of sports books. No first touchdown scorer. No first goal scorer. Okay? So that could apply to hockey. That could apply to soccer, European football. That obviously applies to American football, like the NFL.
Yeah.
Okay? So let's go back to the Dallas Cowboys game. No first touchdown scorer. You could be like, wow, these teams are actually really struggling to move the football. Or maybe you watch the Bills against the Chiefs where it was pouring rain. Yeah. And you're like, wow, these teams struggle to move the football. At the start of the game, the odds for no touchdown scorer in both of those games were 101.0 or plus 1,000 in American odds. So 100 to 1. The odds were 100 to 1 for no touchdown scorer. At the end of the first quarter, if there was no touchdown, the odds for no touchdown score was 100 to 1. So you have these massive odds at the start of the game, but an entire quarter, 25% of that game has gone by, and let's just say there wasn't a touchdown. There hasn't been a touchdown scored, and the odds are still the same as what they were pregame. And there's a reason for that, right? Sports books cap the price that they offer on any given market. So the true odds of no touchdown score in one of those games might have been 250 to 1. And it took a full quarter, and then midway through the second, now you see the 100 to 1 is dropped to 90, and then to 80, and then to 70. And now you see the odds starting to move. But it was capped out at the beginning based on what they're willing to pay out for that particular market. Another good one in football is the market for safety. You'll see some books offer it at 500 to 1 when other books offer it at 50 to 1. And if you look at the number of scores in the 2019 NFL season, there's something like roughly 2,100 scores. All scores. All touchdowns, all field goals, all safeties. Of those 2,100, 17 of them were safeties, right? So you look at the odds of any one given drive, not next score, but any one given drive, of there being a safety on that drive, and 500 to 1 is too low.
Yeah.
And then you look at 50 to 1, and you're like, well, that number's capped out.
Yeah.
Right? That number isn't just wrong. It's unbelievably, ridiculously wrong. So you have these huge odds where not only is there no value, it's one of the biggest sucker wagers you could make. Because the sports books are afraid of giving the true odd of, say, 1,000 to 1, because they don't want that risk.
Right.
They're just not exposing. Even if there's value on the 1,000 to 1, they're not exposing themselves to putting that number out there. Right.
Which is pretty crooked. I mean, like, yeah, and then you talk about big numbers, and I think that there's something there to be said about learning and knowing the sport or whatever event you're watching before you even think about what big numbers are out there, right? Because if you don't understand circumstantially, like, oh, they're offering 50 to 1 on any other score. Yeah. Well, the team's on the 20. They're not going, like the odds of them doing that, like you said, are completely beyond that. But as a person who's watching that sport or learning that sport, or diving into a new sport, it's so important to know and understand, like, do the studying and understand the game before you look at the odds and say, wow, this is incredible. Like, they're offering me like 40 to 1, right? For a field goal. It's like they're never going to kick that field goal or things like that, right? Yeah. So I think that's kind of like a caveat to the big number thing. Yeah. On the other side of things, okay? So like we've talked about, like, hey, watch out for this. Don't touch this. Like, be aware of this. What about some of the positive things when you start to see some big numbers? Where do opportunities start to develop where there's, like, you see really big numbers but are actually good situations where, like, hey, this could actually be a proper true value wager.
Right. So I just want to touch on one more thing really quickly. one of the biggest things that people think there's theoretical value in, this is one of the biggest sucker bets, is when a heavy favorite goes down in a game and they think they got better than the pregame odds, so they take it. That's the value on a heavy favorite within the in-play menu and within that game. That lack of value where the public's driven the number down, it stays there the whole game. It doesn't all of a sudden go away. It only goes away if a whole bunch of money comes in on the underdog. But it's all things equal, so saying that money doesn't come in on the underdog, that is not value. And it's something that people will oftentimes think is value. Like, you know, the Yankees went down 2 runs. They're for sure going to win.
Yeah.
And then you watch the game get away from them.
Yeah.
Just as equally as, you know. So
you can't forget that human element where it is sport. There are, like you said in your baseball analogy last week, every team's going to win and lose 60 games, right?
Yeah.
The difference is 30. These are professional people we're wagering on, right? Like, things are going to go wrong. Things are going to go sideways. Like, show me a sports bettor and I'll show you someone who's seen some of the ugliest bet losses. The other night, we had the under in the Cowboys Cardinals game at the end of the game. It should have been done. Should have been dusted.
Yeah.
And the Cowboys...
Kenyon Drake busted out.
The Cowboys literally sit on their butts and watch and pout as Kenyon Drake goes 70 yards to the house.
And even then, usually you'd see the running back take a knee there.
Yeah.
But Kenyon Drake wanted to score.
Yeah,
and I don't blame him for Mike McCarthy using his
I would
timeouts.
have gone in too.
Why is Mike McCarthy using his timeouts? Up freaking down 28. He's using timeouts.
Yeah.
What are you trying to do? Save face? Anyways, big odds. When is there actually value there?
Yeah.
And I think I go back to my analogy. When is the outcome that you're looking for more likely than the odds imply? So what are you currently witnessing? What are you currently seeing that has remarkable odds that's consistently occurring that you can continue to profit off of? There's so many ways that can be applied and to so many different sports and leagues. One of the best ones is really spotting a trend in the way a player is playing in soccer or football, where, you know, maybe there was an injury of a superstar, like a guy like Cristiano Ronaldo comes in. Who's coming in for him, or who's the striker that's now more likely to score because that player's not in the game? Things like that can have huge odds associated with them that because of a circumstance that's changed in game. So, you know, the algorithm that is creating all of our odds is unaware of, you know, maybe this player's particular value in the game. If anyone has seen our trailer, I talk about hitting an 81-1 wide receiver to score the next touchdown in a game. I've had people bash me religiously on social media because they're like, "Oh, you got lucky and you hit this guy to score the only touchdown he's ever scored in his career." Well, guess how many times I've wagered him to score a touchdown? 1. Once. That's it.
Never again.
It's not about never again.
I'm kidding.
I would wager it again if I saw what I saw in that game.
Yeah.
Right? Did I get lucky? Hell yeah. Were the true odds of that wager closer to 15-1? Yes. I got it at 80-1. Yeah. Right? That was a huge odd, right? And when it comes to these big odds, it can take a long time to realize your return, because the bigger the odds, the events are mutually exclusive. And when you have mutually exclusive events, the 15-1 you took yesterday doesn't make that you missed, even though it was a value wager, doesn't make the 15-1 today more likely to occur. Mm-hmm. It still is going to occur. Let's say the true odds were 10-1 and you're getting 15-1. It's still only going to occur 10% of the time, which means you can miss 50 of them in a row.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the higher the odds get, the harder it is to realize your return. There's a great analogy that I like to use, okay? In British Columbia, we have the lottery. In Canada, we have the Lotto 649. So 6 numbers, 1 through 49. You have to pick all 6 of them right to win the lottery. The odds are, I don't know the exact odds, but something like 1 in 17 million, right? It's a $2 ticket, or at least it used to be, right? So theoretically speaking, once that lotto gets above $34 million, you're putting $2 in with 17 million to 1 odds. It's now become a fair bet, even though it's the lottery. But because it hasn't been won
yeah.
in previous weeks, you've actually created a fair bet once it's $34 million based on it being a $2 ticket price and 17 million to 1 odds. So do you think you're going to realize those returns in your lifetime, even though you made a fair bet? Well, what if the lotto went to 50 million, right? So you bet it every time it gets to 40 or 50 million, right? Are you going to realize those returns in your lifetime? Probably not, right? You need lightning to strike. You need a 17 million to 1 odd to be correct. Yeah. And if it happens, great, but you could spend your entire lifetime trying to hit that, even though that scenario I just painted to you was a value wager.
Yeah, so don't go around chasing soccer teams down 3 goals and basketball teams down 30 points and, tennis players down 2 sets all the time. It's just not, those odds are, you have to be very careful with that, right?
If you were selective and you found value there, by all means, take it in that scenario, but don't be chasing it thinking that you're making money because you see a big number. Yeah, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Totally. Is there, in your mind, a sweet spot of, obviously in the mentality and the religion that you imply, it's...
Religion.
It's it is. It's like a way of attacking it, right? Is there a sweet spot for an odd... whether I know obviously you're going to say it depends, but a sweet spot where you're thinking most of my wagers hit between this realm.
Well, when we track our data and you look at what we're hitting, and so this is again, I gotta if you're one of these trolls messaging me, I gotta bash you a little bit because they'll be like, "What's your record?" Right? And with our pregame stuff, we hit at a clip of 55%, but the big difference is we hit at an odd usually of 2.1. So plus 110, whereas a lot of the other pros hit at 55 to 60%, but at 1.9, right? Or minus 110.
And sometimes less, right?
With our in-play stuff, we tend to hit at a clip of about 38%, right? So people are like, 38%? You suck. And I'm like, but the average price is just under 4.0 or plus 300.
Okay, yeah.
So if you take a 40% odd and you flip it for the implied success, you need to hit... if you hit at 40%, your average price needs to be 2.5 or plus 150 to break even theoretically over time. So if we're hitting at 40%, but we're getting 4.0 or plus 300, we make a shitload of money. And I message, what's your record? Well, we hit at a clip of about 39%, 38, 39%, but our average price is 4.0 or plus 300. And they're like, 39%? That's terrible. And the lack of understanding is unbelievable. And if you want to succeed and you don't understand that kind of stuff, I'm not saying you won't succeed. You need to figure it the hell out because you certainly won't succeed if you don't understand all the things that we've just talked about.
Yeah.
When I say those kind of things about what odds, what the implied odds are and what a value wager is versus what a bad bet is, make money over time versus not, that should be inspiring. Mm-hmm. That should be like, holy shit, I have looked at this the wrong way for so long. Everything that he's saying makes so much sense. And if you want, you can go out there and try to figure it all out for yourself, right? Good luck. I spent the last 10 years doing that, right? And our system is so dialed now that you can jump in and cut yourself the losses in between and all the time and just join our community and hit the ground running, right? So, yeah. So sweet spot, to answer your question, tends to be for us an average price between 3.5 and 4.5, so plus 250 and plus 350 in American odds. But that doesn't mean we don't hit wagers at a lower value, right? And that's balanced out by the Byron Pringles, where we hit the 80 to 1. Travis Fulgham, we hit at 20 to 1. Who's that Packer, that tight end? He got injured now.
Tonyan.
Robert Tonyan, I hit at 20 to 1.
But yeah, the reason I asked that question is because kind of coming back from people talking about those big numbers versus hey, where are we actually operating and where's that landscape? And then you relate that back to where the pregame guys or the majority of people are playing, which is in the minus money actually, or at maybe about even.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of it brings the level of, okay, that's not that outrageous, right? It's 2.5 to 4 to 1 is that's not egregious what you're looking to make happen, and that's why you're hitting at a good clip or a reasonable clip that can be profitable. Yeah.
Well, going back to pregame professionals, there's a baseball company based out of San Diego. They focus solely on heavy favorites in baseball, and they win money over time. because they're being ridiculously selective.
Right.
But it's slow. It's a 2 to 3% edge. They make money. I don't see how much they wager, but I would imagine that they wager in the tens of thousands per unit.
Yeah.
And a lot of those tens of thousands are paying them back like 5,000-6,000. So you need to be hitting at a clip of, 65%, 70% to actually have long-term value, right? So if someone said to them, "What's your record?" and they're like, "We're 70-30," and you're like, "Holy shit, these guys are good." Well, how is that relevant without the average price that they hit at?
It's completely not.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
So for all of you out there that are in this industry that are looking for tips and tricks and things like that, a record is irrelevant without the actual profits, right? With our numbers, you can take that small amount of money and turn it into a large amount of money because of the fact that our average price that we hit at is so high.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a barrier to entry to that side of things too, right? Whereas with this approach, it's kind of like you can apply it right off the bat on any scale and scale it up and down.
Yeah.
With that said, how do you, like, when you look at things like larger, big numbers, what are you doing with your unit measurements or your wagers? How do you scale that? How do you decide, like, obviously there's a side that's like feeling, right? I feel like, oh man, I just watching that Packers game where Tanyan was all over the ball. There's no one else out on the field. Like, he literally doesn't have another receiver, and it's like, this is juicy. It's like, do you hit that with a unit, a half unit, a quarter unit, or like, how do you approach those things?
Yeah, so for me, unfortunately, I don't get to decide a lot of times.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because the limit that the sports books offer for big odds, they have max profits. Yeah. So some books will have a max profit of 500. Like the Betson Group is a joke. Their max profit's like a couple $100. You go to place $100 on an odd at 2.1 and it says market limit reached. Like, that's a joke, right? So, but flip to a sports book that actually offers you really good odds and has available options, from the, anything from even money all the way up into the 100 to 1 kind of markets that, let's just say we found value on one of them.
Yeah.
Most of the times they're gonna have a max profit of 1, 2, 4, maybe as high as 8,000, but usually it's like max profit of 2,000 is very normal. Mm-hmm. So if I see 100 to 1, I might only be able to place $20 on it, which is 1/25 of the unit size that I'd like to be placing.
Okay, so maybe like on a more like if you were to scale back and just be like someone who's wagering, let's say $100 units or $50 units.
Okay, so let's say your unit size is $50.
And you're managing your bankroll.
Yeah.
How do you attack these higher odds situations where it's like, oh, this is a really juicy opportunity, but you kind of have to catch yourself and not overexpose.
But I want to be able to realize my return, so I don't want to risk too much. Let's say that your unit size is $50. So if you were an inplayLIVE member, that would mean that your bankroll would be a minimum of $2,000. Yeah. That's what we would recommend. So let's say that unit size is $25 and you've identified value on a 25 to 1 market, okay? And you're like, I know I'm probably going to lose this. Let's say that the theoretical odds or the true odds of that wager was 15 to 1. Yeah. So, you need a 7.8 or whatever 1 in 15 is. Let's call it 7 to 8%. You're gonna hit this wager at. But you're getting 25 to 1, so it makes sense to wager on it. I would, if it was me, I would 100% base it on how I'm doing that day and that moment.
Right.
So I would have no problem putting a full unit on it, a full $50, if I was running really well. And if I wasn't, I'd put anywhere from 1/10 of a unit to a quarter of a unit on it if I wasn't feeling confident. Yeah. So I wouldn't say, oh, put this much on it ever. Yeah. I would totally base it on that day in that situation, in that scenario. Yeah. So, things are really running, no problem putting a unit on it. Absolutely. Yeah. I wouldn't care at all.
Totally. Yeah. I think that's just a good overall way of attacking things too, and you've talked about that before. Like, if you're running hot, you're having a good day, you're on the upswing, not push your luck. That's not it at all, but like, use your unit, right? Like, and kind of, you've got a good thing going on, you've got a good trend, you've identified a pattern.
Yeah.
Kind of go with it, right?
Yeah.
Don't be scared to do that because you're
Yeah.
running hot. And on the other side, if things go real ice cold, like they did last Saturday,
yeah,
park the bus, right?
Yeah.
And just like scale right back and start from zero.
Yeah.
And that's a really good way of protecting and managing your bankroll and managing your risk,
Yeah.
while still trying to capitalize on good odds.
But
right?
let's say you have a $10,000 bankroll, and I shouldn't use that number. Let's say you have a $1,000 bankroll, so that it's a little bit more common, and your unit size is $25. It is very common on a losing run. Let's say that 1,000 becomes 500, where you go, I'm going to bet 100 on this next one, or you go, I'm going to bet 200, and then all of a sudden you have 200 or 300 left, and you go, I'm going to bet 200 or 300 on this next one.
Yeah,
that is the more common thing that you see in this industry, and it's the precise opposite of how you want to handle it.
Yeah,
right. It's just wrong.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's a good little sidebar, I think,
Yeah.
because you can't lose sight of the overall goal, especially when you start to see big odds, right?
Yeah.
People kind of think like home run odd, home run swing kind of thing, right? You start to get caught up in that a little bit. It's like, just chill, stick with the plan.
Yep. Always
No
stick
matter
with the
what.
system. And if you're not, like, go for a walk. Like, do something.
Yeah.
Do something. Like, have a system. Tell your wife. Walk your dog. Whether, like, if you have anything. Like, you could put a penny in a jar. Anything to go, I'm feeling the way I'm feeling right now because I'm losing. I'm not going to chase. I feel like I need to do that thing, right?
Yeah.
Have that trigger where that gives you that extra second to think about what you've done. Not only that, it's crazy when you're chasing. If you're in that mindset, it's crazy. Look at what you would have bet.
Yeah.
You just would have found a way to lose.
Yeah.
Even if you won that one bet, you would have found a way to lose.
Totally.
So, like,
go watch Mississippi Grind.
Yeah.
2 hours. Watch
Mississippi Grind ends with like a huge ridiculously lucky run. Right, where he makes a bunch of money.
The middle.
And you leave being like, fuck, I want to go gamble. Like, not even, I don't want to go make value wagers on sports. You're like, fuck, I want to go
double up.
I want to go play some blackjack or something stupid. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
What else we got?
I think that's all we're going to cover today.
Awesome. So let's talk about really, really quickly, guys. I think it's important to just do a quick recap. If you guys don't follow us on socials, Instagram and Facebook, we're inplayLIVE. YouTube, we're inplayLIVE. Check us out there. I do a weekly update every Monday on inplayLIVE about the previous week. That's where you can find out how the inside went for us, and actually more specifically my particular journey sports betting. We had a ridiculously difficult day last Saturday, which was really, really hard to get through. But one of the coolest things about Saturday is that we came out on top at the end of the day. For me personally, I still ended up profiting about $4,000. But what was so cool about it was the community that we have at inplayLIVE, and we were in it together on Saturday. It wasn't me trying to get everyone out of a hole. It wasn't anyone chasing. It was a community of people helping each other make sure that we were identifying value, and then it just started hitting in spades. And then Sunday I had one of the biggest days I've ever had sports betting. I made $30,000 on Sunday betting $250 to $500 units. It was remarkable. So super fun on the inside. We've created a really, really cool community. So if you're not a member already, you can join today. Use promo code Ritzker Podcast at checkout. The link is below on YouTube. If not, you can go to inplaylive.com, click on the Get Access, and like I said, promo code Ritzker Podcast, RITZKER PODCAST for 40% off at checkout.
And go to iTunes, go to Spotify, subscribe, write a review.
Yep.
Suggestions for future podcasts. If there's something you want us to talk about, you got questions, you want to be a guest speaker maybe.
Yeah.
We're open to ideas and stuff like that.
Yeah, any ideas you have, any questions that you can think of whatsoever, please post them in the comments below. Lastly, week ahead, we're in a really unique time right now. We are approaching, for the first time in my life, where only the NFL and the NCAA
I'm
football
kind of
will
happy
be on.
about it, to be
It's
honest.
cool, right?
Yeah.
So NBA's done, NHL's done. Obviously, we have UFC, we have some tennis and some golf. We got the Masters coming up in November, things like that. But from a night-to-night basis, we got the World Series on right now, and that's going to end at the latest in a week, I think. In a week, yeah. So one last piece of information. We have done some ridiculous data compilation specific to the World Series. We applied those strategies last night to Game 1 and was extremely successful, and we are applying them tonight. The game will be on by the time this is out, but
45 minutes, yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The game will be on once this is released. But point being, for the entirety of the World Series, we have some really, really, really cool data that's identified some soft markets across a few different books that is available basically everywhere. So join us at inplayLIVE.com to really learn how to turn the ship around, and we'll see you on the inside.
Cheers, buddy.